Thank you very much to the organizers, to the publishers Ayodhya, to my dear friends, both politicians under 35. And the future of Indian politics is very bright. And also to Roop as well for this absolutely wonderful book. Before I come to my talk, I just wanted to say a couple of things about this wonderful book, and I had the real pleasure and honor to write the foreword for it. So thank you, Anil, for asking me to do that, and Charu as well. Of course, I don't want to go into depth as to what really freedom means, and did we really get our freedom? And the fact of the matter is that the list that has been selected of these absolute legends and heroes has a bit of tragedy attached to it, because they all died before they reached the age of 35. So there is tragedy there. And as one Italian judge, Falcone, said, those who are not afraid to die, die only once. All these 35 died only once. It's really an honor for us Indians to be revisiting their heroics, the snippets, as has been so beautifully illustrated and talked about in each of these 35 chapters. But one thing did strike me, and I would possibly broach it with the authors, that yes, as I talked about the tragedy attached with it, that all these luminaries, they died before 35. Many who went on to live beyond 35, thankfully, also joined and started fighting for our freedom when they were below 35. So maybe the next edition you could include a host of legends who were young, some as young as 14, 15, although not 12, and who lived beyond 35, who actually lived to see India free and independent. But before I finish hastily on this, I just want to tell you that the one name that all of us immediately associate with fighting for our freedom, and one name that has been almost viscerally ingrained in us, is that of quote-unquote Mahatma Gandhi. He wouldn't have qualified for this, because he did not start fighting for our freedom when he was under 35, if I'm not mistaken. Born in 1869, and I think he returned to India in 1915. And before that, in South Africa, it wasn't really a struggle for India's freedom, and he was happy to be living under the aegis of the king. So I think he didn't. But one true hero who never got the due that was due to him, and who really fought for our freedom, and tragically was sidelined not only by Mahatma Gandhi, rather cruelly, but also snooped upon by Jawaharlal Nehru for years to come, and who the British Prime Minister is on record saying that one of the primary reasons why India got independence was because of the naval mutiny and because of Subhash Chandra Bose and his army. He would have qualified for this book, because born in 1895 or something, I can't quite remember, but he jumped into the freedom movement in 1920, I think. He gave up his ICS and then began this amazing journey of one of our greatest sons who never got his due. So I would also like your next editions to be not only encompassing freedom fighters who were below 35, who joined the freedom struggle, but also a bit more controversial and ruthless, if I may. Because the truth must come out. And I think if not now, then when? That's the question all of us must be asking. All the heroes that we were taught are our heroes. Rendition of truth and history tells us that they are anything but heroes. So who should take their place? History and historical fact and truth should take that place. And I think now is the time, and I think this book has come right at that inflection point. So once again, my congratulations to both of you, and to the three of you, and to the publisher as well. Thank you. Now coming swiftly to the topic of my talk, which is the quest for survival of Sanatana Dharma. This is coming very shortly after a talk was arranged for eradication of Sanatana Dharma. So I don't think this is there to address or redress the balance, but just to say that I also have a, by the way, flight to catch in 3 hours, but I really don't mind missing it because one of you would be kind enough to give me shelter in your homes, and I shall finally have authentic Mysore Pak. And I can declare from this thing that there is no such thing called Tamilian Mysore Pak. All Mysore Paks are Kannadigas. I shall tweet about it when I'm in the plane, safe and sound, then I can talk about the Tamilian Mysore Pak. No, but thank you so much for such warm welcome and such lofty introduction. If my wife believed just 2% of what you said while introducing me, I mean, my life would be made, and what can I say? But, talking about Sanatana Dharma, or Hinduism, let's put it that way, and the quest for survival, I thought and I'm absolutely not an expert, please do not, in fact, in the next half an hour or so, you will find that I am more wrong than right, which is fine, because that is also one of the attributes and principles of Sanatana Dharma in Hinduism, to seek the truth. The quest for truth is riddled with errors and mistakes, and I am one who is going to make a lot of these mistakes. So my apologies in the beginning itself. If you were to find many things that I say are not correct at all, I apologize in the beginning. What does it mean when I say, would Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma survive? For us to ask that question first up, and I have segmented my talk or the next half an hour into 3 or 4 things that main topics, the thrust of these topics that I would like to talk about, but I'd like to begin with, this is a journey for me as well, the next half an hour, because as Anil knows, I was nervous trying to formulate how shall I go about talking about this subject, because I'm not an expert at all in this. But then I realized that, in today's world, in order to talk about anything, you don't need to be an expert. So, and I'm the living example of that almost every night. I thought I'll throw it open to the audience. This question, before we address whether Hinduism would survive, what do we mean by Hinduism? And I thought because I don't know all your ages, some of them, this elderly gentleman looks like JNU undergraduate, so I know the age of that, but I hope you don't mind, sir. But I thought I'll ask 2 people. One the youngest and one the oldest, and I'll come to the oldest. I'm not staring at you, believe me. So is there anyone who's under 15 years of age here? No, there's no one. Okay, so now we're getting through the layers. Oh, there is someone. Oh, fantastic. But can I please have a show of hands? How many of you think of yourselves as Hindu? Right, so that's an overwhelming majority of people out here. Majoritarian audience, if we can say it. But the first right of resources wouldn't go to you, but that's another matter. This young man who said he is below 15, yeah, your hand went up. You identify yourself as Hindu? Right. So can you tell me, young man, do we have a mic? Yeah, if you could just give this wonderful young man the mic. Yeah. Hi. Can I know your name, please?
Siddharth.
Siddharth. Siddharth. Wonderful, Siddharth. Can you tell me three things that you believe make you a Hindu?
I follow my religion daily. I respect it. I worship it. And I understand it. Why I worship it.
Okay, it's wonderful what you do, but it's not quite an answer that I don't know whether I was looking for, or it kind of explains it any further. What according to you is Hinduism that you follow? Take your time, think about it. It's nothing. Trust me, if you don't know the answer, that's almost 100% of the audience. So, in fact, that is Hinduism. But when you say you follow it, you respect it, what according to you is that it?
Well, for me, it's my religion that was passed on from my bloodline, from my ancestors.
Okay.
So it's these traditions, these
Tradition.
sacred acts of worship that we perform for our deities. Now, some may consider it superficial,
Right.
or superstitious or stereotypical, but there is always truth behind it for me at least.
That's wonderful. A big round of applause for young Siddharth. Thank you very much. And I truly appreciate, Siddharth, your giving this answer. But if one is to be objective, and I'm sure you amongst everyone else out here would want me to be objective, I would say that that would be every religion. What you said is true about every religion that promises and asks or sometimes demands allegiance from the devotees. So that doesn't narrow it down as to what exactly does one mean when one says being Hindu or I'm Hindu and I want Hinduism to survive. What is it that must survive? Can I now, without being very patronizing, ask Sir, who maybe you're not the oldest member of the audience, right? So is there anyone who's above 80 in this audience? No one's a JNU undergraduate then. Anyone above 70? Wow, this really is a young audience. Surely above 60. There, sir. Thank you so much for being so frank. In fact, credit yourself, you don't look a day older than 75. But anyway, sir, so the same question, if I may ask to you, sir, and a big round of applause for a very famous Kannadiga writer, a playwright, a novelist. Real honor that you are in the audience, sir. What does it mean when I say that when we want Hinduism to survive or quest for survival, what are the three qualities that make you separate from follower of any other religion or way of life? What is Hinduism according to you?
Probably it is peace for the mankind, freedom with social responsibility.
Right.
Probably these are the issues which I identify in Sanatana Dharma.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Big round of applause. And again, you're right. So was Siddharth. Everyone is right. But you see, with this simple experiment, what we've established is two things. One, that it is not very easy to define what Hinduism is. It really isn't. Each to his own, his or her own. Two, that was the whole point of Hinduism. Each to his or her own. That is the beauty of Hinduism. If I were to ask if there was someone from, let's say, a Muslim in the audience or a Christian in the audience, and I were to ask the same question, the answer would come immediately, because there are strict definitions of what is a Muslim, who is a Christian, what is a Muslim supposed to do. There are no strict instructions or commands or orders as to what a Hindu is supposed to do. In fact, how glorious can Hinduism be if you were to see it as a religion? I don't, but many people, for those who do, that there is a whole sect that Hinduism encourages that says, leave the fold of Hinduism, Charvak, atheism. Which other religion would promote atheism? I mean, the most magical or phantasmagorical, if I can put it, of contradictions is imbibed in Hinduism itself. There are sects in Hinduism that reject the Vedas altogether, and we are in the land of Lingayats, we know. So, when we talk of this quest for making Hinduism survive, what essentially do we mean? What should survive? And you're all thinking about the answer. I've been thinking about this whole day. What should survive? Peace should survive. Friendliness should survive. But these are all very ephemeral answers. Everyone would say peace should survive. We should have bonhomie. We should respect elders. These are all intrinsic human, moral and ethical qualities. Every religion would say this should survive. What makes it different? And I do not claim to be an expert at all, but I think I can put my finger on it, which is that when we say Hinduism should survive, we mean that a philosophy that doesn't know the answer, but that wants to seek the answer should survive. Every other philosophy claims to know the answer. Islam not only claims to know the answer, it provides the answer. It provides the God that it says is the only God, that it then broadcasts 5 times a day, with the majority not knowing what is being talked about. What is being talked about is that there is no other God but Allah, and only He is to be worshipped. Without going into the fact whether that is right or wrong, because I never do that. I want my head to be satisfactorily attached to my torso. Without going into any controversial aspect of religion at all, which is a pity, because everyone should be free to discuss whatever they are, but we know we live in a country where just quoting a few verses can banish you for life and destroy your life altogether. The fact of the matter is, some religions know exactly what they are, who their followers are to be. Hinduism knows exactly what Hinduism is, and it is that I do not know who my followers should be, what I am. And I think that is the beauty. That is the beauty that must survive if humanity is to survive. And if you think about it, for a second just ponder the astonishing parallels between this aspect of philosophy with what science is. Are people ever certain in science? Very rarely do people know exactly that this is an axiom. There are very few axioms in science. There are tens and millions of discoveries that have been made over the past 8,000 years. But there are a handful of axioms. That itself tells you that science is itself on a reasonably unsure footing, tending towards surety. And that is how human civilizations progress. You must always tend towards surety. But to say that you are absolutely sure is a different thing altogether. Tending towards surety is what science promises you and science delivers. Things become better, you have better techniques, better methodologies, you come up with better answers, you come up with more accurate assessments, more discoveries, more inventions based on something. You completely overturn a dogma. You're thinking of something and suddenly that's not true at all. And people say that is what demarcates science from religion. And I say that is what demarcates science from religion. But that is what is the parallel between science and Hinduism. And if you understand this difference, anybody, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Isai, Buddhist, Jain, anyone, it's a simple next follow-up question. Why wouldn't you want Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism to survive? Because the bedrock of progress is seeking and questioning. The bedrock of progress is science, doing more experiments, discovering things. And here is a philosophy that is allowing you to do so. Here is a philosophy that is saying that I'm not sure. I'm saying this right now, but here is Charvak. He's saying God doesn't exist. I'm not sure. I'm not condemning him. I'm glorifying him. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that something that we must make sure should survive? I think it is. And I think this is a take-home question for me. That when people try and define what must survive, just this aspect, a philosophical aspect, nothing religious about it. As I say, in Hinduism, for those who believe there is a religious aspect to it, it is an offshoot of a way of life. In Islam, the way of life is an offshoot of religion. So, Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma is encouraging mutability because ways of life change through millennia. We've seen people may have differing perceptions of how one must lead one's life. Your attire changes, your reflection, your movements, your diction, your languages, everything changes with life. You adapt, and that is what evolution is. That is the hallmark of Darwinian evolution, that your ideas are being thrown into a cauldron. You are debating because you're not sure. You're not certain that this is it. And I'm telling you this is it, you better follow this. You're not certain about anything. And that is the spirit of competition. That is the spirit of right or wrong mutations entering your genome. And you either going backwards or evolving and going forward. That is what the essence of Hinduism, I believe, is. Now the next question, which is the obvious question, is that, is this not so philosophical, non-aggressive, pacifist, something so beautiful that you want it to survive, but in an atmosphere where there are predatory religions that are asking or demanding things that would absolutely make sure that this thing of beauty, this unsure thing, entity, will never survive. It's a fact. What do we do? You want to look at demographic shifts. You want to look at populations that change, that shift. You want to look at the Kashmir Valley. You want to look at where Kashmir got its name, who were the original inhabitants of Kashmir. You want to look at the population share right now. The answers are staring at you, staring at Hindus, staring at what is perceived to be a quest, seeking the question. But what happens when a predatory philosophy or religion I would call it religion because it has a set dogma, says anybody who is seeking something, who is not believing in what I'm saying, has to be killed. There is no two way about it. The followers have to do it. Thankfully, the followers haven't achieved it completely, and that is why we are here. But they tried their level best. Through the last 1,000-1,200 years, they've tried it. And can I just also add that I want to thank the lady who gave the rendition of Vande Mataram. And I'll tell you why. Because we have been subjugated to a race or to a people who've become cowardly. Hinduism will survive and thrive the day we narrate the all 5 stanzas of Vande Mataram like you did, ma'am. What kind of a country are we living in? Or to borrow a phrase, what kind of a Hindu Rashtra are we living in? Where our national song has been chopped and cut to pieces. This was one of Jinnah's conditions, by the way. But that was pre-partition. Jinnah went away, but our national song dare not mention Durga, dare not mention this multi-limbed goddess of wealth, power, prosperity that is blessing this motherland. We dare not mention it. Is this how you want this civilization to survive and thrive? Is this not cowardly? There is a difference between how you voluntarily decide you are going to lead your life and how the life you are going to lead is thrust upon you. It is the latter that donates cowardice to you. It's a fact. You may be brave, but your bravery turns to bravado if the state doesn't back you. If all of us start singing Vande Mataram's 5th, 4th and 5th stanzas, there will be FIRs against us. You will be thrown in jail. What use is that bravery then? That is the issue. The state has become cowardly. The state has subjugated the civilization to such an extent that it has started making a line between what is Hinduism and what is civilization. And it has decided that the twain are not meeting. And if the twain meet, it would be disrespecting peoples of other faiths. That is not only a lie, that is a danger for the survival of India itself. Because nothing else in this country will allow the survival of people of other faiths than Hindus themselves. It's a fact. People say it as a cliche that this country is secular because of Hinduism. I would twist it a little because this country is not secular. We are plural. We are not secular because of 5 or 6 reasons that I have elaborated at many places, at many times, especially in the book as well. For a start, how can a state control Hindu places of worship and still say that there is a demarcation between church and state? You are secular, why are you paying the salaries of Maulvis and priests? Is that what a secular country does? So we are confused, our politicians, our governments are confused when they say, oh, we are secular, or when they say, try and be secular. We are not. But whatever we are, plural, it is because of the majority, the dispensation of the majority, that come what may. What Sir said, Siddharth, when he grows up to be Sir's age, will feel exactly the same. What has been passed on to us is something that has survived. Now, the next obvious question is, if there were invasions of tyrants, so many invasions of tyrants, how is it that we have survived till now? And I'll tell you, you have to read Dr. Meenakshi Jain's book to realize the pain and effort our ancestors did to make sure we are there. Night after night they were chased. Tens of millions of them perished, converted, raped, pillaged. But night after night, they took out the deities, the idols. They threw them in the well. They dug 6 feet deep. They buried them and told their sons and daughters, centuries later, remember, this is where your God is. Take it out then. Not now. That is the reason all of us are here. Some of us proud atheists, some of us proud believers, but all of us civilizationally Hindus. Because this is what civilization and survival and quest for survival of a civilization means. What is civilization? I asked, what is Hinduism? A more difficult and pertinent question would be, what is it we want should survive beyond us? What is it we want to give to our progenies? What is it? Money, wealth, prosperity? No, I mean they are, and I say this as a fact, our children are never going to need our money. It is good and it's a good feeling that we are saving for our children, but they are going to be richer than us. They are going to be more prosperous, wealthier, more educated, more wise than us. Siddharth is sitting next to his mother, presumably. He's never going to need her money. She's saving like hell. Oh, Siddharth, one day you're going to need this money. He says, mother, no. I'm going to give you extra money if you need it, but I don't need your money. So children don't need that. If our children don't need, what did we need from our ancestors? Ask this and you will know the answer to what civilization is and what is the difference between civilization, its survival, and empires. Why do empires don't last? Why do many empires don't survive? Where is the British Empire? Where the sun never sets on the British Empire, where is it now? Whatever is left of it is being ruled by an Indian, by the way. But the fact of the matter is that if I were to ask this question, what do I mean by civilization? It is this quest to right the wrong that was done to our ancestors. It is the memory that Dr. Meenakshi Jain talks about. It is that still buried idol that we must excavate and do a sthapna of it. That is what civilization is. Nothing else is civilization. That is why we are here. For no other reason. That the injustices that were done to our ancestors, for which they gave their lives, tens of millions of them, but did not succumb. That is the reason why we are here. That is the reason why we must make sure that Hinduism survives. And by Hinduism, as I said, I don't mean to pigeonhole it so that it's something that is followed only by Hindus. You talk about Indic religions. You talk about the gloriousness of Buddhism and Jainism and Sikhism and how gloriously Hindus accepted it. How gloriously Hindus, I gave the example of Charvak. You have Charu among us. Charu believes in Dayanand Saraswati. If Dayanand Saraswati were to write Satyarth Prakash being published today, incidentally, Satyarth Prakash was banned. The demand was not made by Hindus, the demand was made by Muslims. This is the acceptance, the beauty of Hinduism, that you are accepting something, you are encouraging that same thing to debate, to discuss, to compete. आग के दरिये से ideas जाएंगे. Then you accept one idea. And if you believe that idea is wrong, by all means, develop something on your own. Good luck to you. Become Gautam Buddha, become Mahavir, become the 10 gurus. And those 5 pyaras that our beloved Guru selected, if only you knew the history of where they all came from. The first one came from Jagannath Puri. As someone said, if you were to remove Hinduism from Guru Granth Sahib, you will only be left with the spine of the book. People did not succumb. There is something to fight for. There is something that we call ephemeral, that is difficult to define, but that must be protected. Finally, I want to talk about this thing that I was talking with Anil while we were coming here, trying to form a structure to this talk. When we talk about surviving and survival of this thought process, even if this thought process or this philosophy survives, will it cater to the younger generation? That's the next question. Because ultimately, let's be very honest about it. And if I am absolutely brutal, please don't take me the other way. But a person, a human being, can be in a vegetative state and still survive. We have humans in coma, unfortunately, who survived 30 years, 40 years, and would do so if they are on life support machine. Is that the survival that we are seeking for? That's the question. Do we want, if I can be more brutal, because to state the fact in this country has now become to say that you're brutal. Do we want Hinduism to be like Sanskrit? There, I said it. You can troll me on Twitter. But I love Sanskrit. But the fact of the matter is, how many of the youngsters converse in Sanskrit, read Sanskrit, want Sanskrit as a subject? Not even 1%. Sanskrit is dying, but Sanskrit has survived. Sanskrit will survive. The beauty of Sanskrit will survive. But do we want Hinduism to be like Sanskrit? That yes, it is there. It is our pride and glory, but it is nothing more than a museum piece. That's the question. Now what do we do? Can we make Sanskrit as Hindi or as popular as English? I think it's very difficult. Because the next question is, do we want to do it? The purpose of language is to convey something. And if you are conveying it using any language, including C++, the brutes amongst you, including me, would say, well, why do you need Sanskrit? You have C++. But the fact of the matter is, the beauty has to outlive the one that was the means of giving that beauty, the language itself. Did you know that every year world loses 26 languages? Everything is evolving around us. Just because we believe things are static, just because we have been given these commandments or these religions that say this is the absolute truth, stop evolving because this is perfection. Here, take this, I hand it to you. This is how you're going to lead your life. This is how your next 10,000 generations are going to lead your life. Nothing is going to change, not even one comma, one full stop. Is this how we want progress to happen? It might happen. You might even call it progress through some convoluted sense, but you can never call it evolution. Evolution of something means that it is adapting, it is changing. Now, if Hinduism is to survive, it has to adapt. It has to become more amenable. It has to become more accessible to the younger generation. There is no point in young Siddharth saying that I respect Hinduism and I'm going to follow the traditions of my ancestors if we don't make those traditions accessible to him, if he doesn't understand the meaning of those traditions, if he doesn't understand what the traditions talked of in a language that he, his parents, everyone around him, his friends don't understand, don't converse in that language. Is this the point of survival? No, that isn't. So I end by saying that not only must Hinduism survive, what is more important is that it must be a living, breathing entity. And for that to happen, we need it to be more accessible. We need it to go to every house and say, these are our principles. We need Adi Shankaracharyas. And I end by saying one sentence: we need Jai Sai Deepaks. Thank you so much.